Coming up on Network Africa. International Organization for Migration says at least 34 migrants killed after boat mishap. African leaders call for an expansion of vaccine production on the continent. Plus, Ethiopia criticizes Sudan and Egypt over the Grand Renaissance Dam row. Hello and welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Layo Adegoke. The International Organization for Migration says at least 34 people have been killed after a boat capsized off the coast of Djibouti. The boat, operated by people smugglers, was carrying about 60 migrants escaping conflict in Yemen and who were on their way to Djibouti. However, it's unknown what caused the vessel to turn over. The organization has expressed concern over tens of thousands of young African migrants making the dangerous journey from the Horn of Africa to the Gulf states in search of work. It said the COVID-19 pandemic had forced many migrants to return to their homes because many countries closed their borders to curb the spread of coronavirus. The Mozambican government says it needs at least $114 million for the socio-economic reconstruction of the district town of Palma in northern Cabo Delgado province that has been recently vandalized by Islamist terrorists. The Minister of State, Administration and Public Service, Anna Komoana, described the situation in Palma as extremely difficult, shocking and violent, adding that infrastructure and financial resources had been destroyed in the attack. Mrs. Komoana said the government has to prepare to rebuild the town, but she did not say how the funds will be raised. In the meantime, the United Nations says 950,000 people in areas affected by the conflict in northern Mozambique are facing severe hunger. Jihadists linked to the Islamic State group have stepped up attacks over the last year, forcing hundreds of thousands of people to flee their homes. The Mozambique government says following last month's attack on Palma that left dozens of people dead, the entire local administration will have to rebuild from the scratch. African leaders are calling for a vast expansion of vaccine production on the continent. With Africa falling behind in the global vaccination race, the continent's leaders and international health experts on Monday called for an ambitious but achievable plan to boost domestic vaccine production.
Africa must expand vaccine manufacturing to combat COVID-19 and future health emergencies. That message came from continental leaders and international health experts at a virtual meeting on Monday.
That are preventing access to critical health products.
Among them is South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who says that the continent's existing capabilities need to be expanded to create regional hubs.
Africa's response has shown the depth of scientific expertise on the continent and has provided an opportunity for unprecedented scientific collaboration. In ensuring an effective response to the current pandemic, we must strengthen our ability to both respond to future health emergencies and to achieve health security for the people of our continent.
He adds that countries could seek guidance from nations like India and Brazil on how they develop their generic pharmaceutical industries. Africa has struggled to acquire coronavirus vaccines and imports the vast majority of its medical supplies and equipment. For the World Trade Organization Director General Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, this is morally unconscionable and a serious economic hit.
And with the lowest rate of vaccine delivery, 1.1 doses per 100 people. In North America, the figure is over 40. This is morally unconscionable and a serious economic hit. Imports, however, are set to grow by only 5.5%. So between a steeper fall and a weaker rebound, Africa will have lost ground to other regions, particularly Asia. So to boost growth, trade, and livelihoods, we need to get vaccines to everyone who needs them.
She believes that building more manufacturing capacity would require long-term investments, that countries could offer incentives such as cutting tariffs on raw materials. John Kegason, head of the Africa CDC, says that Africa now imports 99% of all its vaccines, but should aim to reduce that to around 40% by 2040. Reports from Africa CDC shows that the continent has fallen behind in the global vaccination race, with under 13 million doses administered to a population of 1.3 billion.
Confusion and complacency in addressing COVID-19 means the pandemic is a long way from over, but it can be brought under control in months with proven public health measures. Now, that's according to Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the World Health Organization. Dr. Tedros says the world still does not understand the long-term consequences for infection for those who survived COVID-19, and that in some countries, despite continuing transmission, restaurants and nightclubs are full and markets open and crowded, with few people taking precautions.
People appear to be taking the approach that if they are relatively young, it doesn't matter if they get COVID-19. This disease is not flu. Young, healthy people have died. And we still don't fully understand the long-term consequences of infection for those who survive. This pandemic is a long way from over. But we have many reasons for optimism. We too want to see societies and economies reopening and travel and trade resuming. But right now, intensive care units in many countries are overflowing and people are dying. And it is totally avoidable. In some countries, despite continuing transmission, restaurants and nightclubs are full, markets are open and crowded with few people taking precautions. The decline in cases and deaths during the first 2 months of the year shows that this virus and its variants can be stopped. With a concerted effort to apply public health measures alongside equitable vaccination, we could bring this pandemic under control in a matter of months. Whether we do or not comes down to the decision and the actions that governments and individuals make every day. The choice is ours. But confusion, complacency, and inconsistency in public health measures and their application are driving transmission and costing lives. It takes a consistent, coordinated, and comprehensive approach.
Dr. Seun Akinyemi, a consultant public health physician at the University College Hospital in Ibadan. He joins us now for more on this. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Firstly, let me start by asking, what are your thoughts on the call for the vaccine expansion on the African continent?
Yes, I think the call is long overdue. In the face of the vaccine nationalism that we have seen since the onset of the COVID pandemic, it's a wake-up call for Africa to take care of our own population. So we need to rise up and find a way to produce vaccines locally. The figures you have presented earlier, they are very, very disheartening. That just about 30 million people out of about 1.3 billion population in Africa have received one dose of the COVID vaccine, and we just have about 1.1 doses per 100 people out of when the US have about 40 doses per 100 people. So we need to wake up. Our leaders need to wake up. We need to find a way to produce locally. I think that call is long overdue. We need to take care of our own population and stop depending on importation. Currently, as you reported earlier, more than 90% of vaccines, 99%, more than 99% of vaccine in Africa is imported. We cannot continue. That is not sustainable. We cannot continue on that path if we want to take care of our own health and take responsibility.
Yeah, just like you've mentioned, the head of Africa CDC also said that 99% of all vaccines are being imported. But then he says the continent is trying and aiming to reduce that to around 40% by the year 2040, and that's in about 19 years. How feasible do you think this is?
Well, it's quite ambitious, but I believe it's feasible. We need to do take a number of measures to achieve this. We need to encourage manufacturers. We need to invest more in vaccine production, in pharmaceuticals. We need to invest more in research. And we need to take a number of measures like suspending patents during the pandemic so that vaccine manufacturers share their intellectual property with other manufacturers, so we could have many more people producing the vaccine. In a pandemic like this, saving lives is the goal, not making profits. So we've got to put all hands on deck. We've got to provide tax waivers for manufacturers and a number of other measures. But I believe it's sustainable, although it is ambitious, but we can achieve it.
All right, then we'll leave it there. Dr. Seun Akinyemi, consultant public health physician at the University College Hospital. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Authorities in Botswana have stopped vaccination in some regions, saying doses allocated to them have been depleted. The country has so far vaccinated 17,808 people, according to the Health Ministry data. People in affected regions have been advised to wait for the next vaccine shipment, which is expected to arrive in weeks. Meanwhile, President Mugwetsi Masisi has moved a night curfew to start at 10 p.m. local time from the earlier start of 8 p.m. local time. Botswana has reported 40,998 COVID-19 cases, including more than 600 deaths. Well, as high COVID infection numbers persist, one of the industries still groaning is the tourism industry. In South Africa, the sector in normal times contributes as much as 9% to the gross domestic product. To make the best of the current situation, Tourism Minister Mamoloko Kubayi Ngubane has been on a nationwide promotion drive for local tourism and is appealing to citizens to keep safe and adhere to health safety regulations in order for the industry not to suffer more than it has. Channels Television joined the minister on the Soweto leg of her tour, where we asked her if foreign tourists should expect more closures of sites now that a third surge is expected.
Yeah, we don't think it will boom exactly. Our target is for now, with this process where we are opening. Obviously, as you look at the experiences, it's open and close based on the risk. Once the risk is high, it will close. Once the risk is going down, we'll open. What we are appealing to South Africans is to assist us for us to remain open. Because if you comply, if you ensure that the spread is not the virus is not spread faster, the numbers don't grow, then we remain open. So it's not even up to government, it's up to every South African to ensure that the numbers don't go up. If if the numbers go up, it's because we've been reckless as South Africans. We've not been wearing our mask. We've not been social distancing. We've not been washing our hands. Because once we do that, then we help government to manage the pandemic. And my appeal as the Minister of Tourism is to say to them, please, please, South Africans, tourism needs to operate. Tourism needs to save the jobs. Tourism needs to save the businesses. And we can only do that when you help us. So please comply. That's what we are appealing to you.
Still ahead on the program. Opposition leaders in Somalia reject Parliament's decision to extend the presidential term by 2 years. To give you more details, please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. A military tribunal has announced that Blaise Compaoré, former president of Burkina Faso, is to be charged with the murder of Thomas Sankara, the man who he ousted in 1987. Mr. Compaoré was forced into exile in 2014 after he attempted to change the law to extend his rule, and then a warrant for his arrest was issued in 2015. The military tribunal on Tuesday indicted him for attack on state security, complicit in murder and concealment of corpse. 13 other people were among those charged, along with the former president. Now, Thomas Sankara, often called the African Che Guevara, was a hugely popular leader and has become a cult figure. Ethiopia says it has addressed all of the concerns Sudan is raising concerning the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Nile River as talks concerning this operation collapsed. The Foreign Affairs Ministry is questioning why Sudan should complain about the dam after, quote, lauding it for years. Sudan and Egypt have increasingly been making similar statements concerning the dam, that they see it as a threat to their share on the Nile River waters. The ministry also accused Egypt of failing to recognize Ethiopia's generosity and understanding. Following the failure of the latest negotiations this month, Egyptian and Sudanese officials have heightened rhetoric against Ethiopia's intention to fill the dam next July. Years of tripartite negotiations have failed to solve this dispute over the construction of the dam, which Egypt and Sudan fear would reduce their share of the Nile waters. To politics now, Democratic Republic of Congo's Prime Minister Jean-Michel Sama Lukonde has announced a new cabinet in a new move that will consolidate President Felix Tshisekedi's control in government. The new government of the Sacred Union Coalition has 57 members, including 14 women, with only 10 from the previous cabinet being reappointed. The Sacred Union is President Tshisekedi's new coalition, announced back in December after breaking his collaboration with former President Joseph Kabila. The former president still retained considerable power even after stepping down following the 2018 elections, as his coalition had won the majority of parliamentary seats in what was widely seen as a flawed election. In December, President Tshisekedi moved to end the coalition with Mr. Kabila and forced the resignation of then Prime Minister by persuading scores of members of parliament to defect. Well, in Somalia, opposition leaders and the regional states of Jubaland and Puntland, as well as the country's Senate, is rejecting Parliament's decision to extend the presidential term by 2 years. The Somali lower house of Parliament on Monday overwhelmingly extended President Farmajo's term in office and that of the federal parliament by 2 years. Jubaland state government said Parliament's move is a setback to rebuilding the country's governance. Also, a spokesperson for Puntland's president tweeted that this is an illegal move by the out-of-mandate lower house. Somalia's Senate's first deputy speaker also questioned the power by the lower house to take such a controversial decision without the Senate's approval. However, President Farmajo praised this decision and called on the Somali people to take advantage of the opportunity and participate in the country's political process. The steady rise in violence against women and girls and the escalating number of cases due to the COVID-19 pandemic has heightened the need for a quick intervention by relevant stakeholders to prevent the continuous sad trend. These were the words of the Executive Secretary of the National Human Rights Commission, Mr. Tony Ojukwu, at the Special Investigation Panel on alleged cases of sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria in the nation's capital.
The National Human Rights Commission is opening a new chapter in the effort to combat sexual and gender-based violence by instituting a panel to hear cases of abuse in the country. From forced and early marriages to physical, mental or sexual assault on women and girls, Nigeria has a plethora of cases of gender-based violence. According to statistics from the United Nations, 30% of women and girls aged between 15 to 49 have experienced some form of sexual abuse. This panel, set up by the National Human Rights Commission, is hearing cases of gender-based violence.
The terms of reference of the panel include the following amongst others: to hear complaints and investigate alleged acts of violation of human rights under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, the Protocol to the African Charter on the Rights of Women in Africa, ordinarily called the Maputo Protocol, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention Against Torture, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Investigate matters of conduct and discipline of the joint task forces across the country, the police, and other law enforcement agencies, including Abuja Environmental Protection Board, during raids, especially as it affects women and girls in the last 10 years.
The Commission is partnering with the United Nations and the European Union as a contribution to address the scourge.
We're committed to giving women and girls a voice to promote their livelihood and freedom from all forms of violence.
First responders, like the police, must be seen to handle issues of gender-based violence from a professional and human rights perspective.
The panel has already received 161 petitions from across the country. 32 cases of them will be heard in the nation's capital in the coming days.
The holy month of Ramadan has begun. Bakeries and shops are preparing to make their traditional sweets in Cairo lighten up for the seasonal festivities with the onset of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan during this second period during the coronavirus pandemic.
Egyptians are crowding the streets of the capital, shopping for traditional ornaments and sweets in preparation for Ufulu Ramadan as the coronavirus pandemic enters its second year. Many unmasked families gathered in markets in central Cairo, buying bright-colored Ramadan lanterns and seasonal desserts for what they say is a fundamentally different season when compared to that of last year.
There's a stark difference between this year and last year. Last year, we had a strict coronavirus lockdown and we couldn't go out. There was so much we couldn't do. This year, people are aware of what they should do. They are aware of the precautionary measures they should take. Most people are wearing masks. There's a Ramadan atmosphere, way more than last year.
Tuesday marks the start of Egypt's second Ramadan amid the pandemic. However, looser restrictions are in place as coffee shops, restaurants and markets remain open. Last year, the government imposed strict measures across the country ahead of the celebratory month shutting down cafes and eating services at restaurants, as well as imposing a nighttime curfew.
Last year, there was a curfew. We couldn't go out to buy things. But this year, thank God, everything is nice. We can go out as much as we want. There are no restrictions. Happy Ramadan.
Although restrictions are looser this year, Egypt's health minister asked citizens to take precautionary measures more seriously. Official coronavirus figures have been on the rise in recent weeks, reaching more than 800 confirmed daily cases ahead of the holy month. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had also previously warned against a possible third coronavirus wave, urging families to be careful and abide by measures during Ramadan.
Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.